Ever felt outsmarted in a debate or paralyzed by a major life decision? You're not alone. Critical thinking mastery is your lifeline in a world of information overload and complex challenges. Without these skills, you risk making costly mistakes, missing golden opportunities, and being manipulated by others' faulty logic. But armed with this book's powerful tools of logic and argumentation, you'll transform your thinking and decision-making. Imagine confidently tackling thorny problems, making smarter choices, and expressing ideas with laser precision. From skyrocketing your career to enriching personal relationships, mastering these skills is your ticket to success. Don't let fuzzy thinking sabotage your potential. Seize this chance to become the sharpest, most persuasive version of yourself. Your journey to outsmarting life's challenges starts here. Are you ready to unlock the power of critical thinking? Chapter 1: Introduction to Logic and Argumentation. In a world inundated with information, where opinions masquerade as facts and persuasive rhetoric often overshadows reason, the ability to think critically and argue logically has never been more crucial. Welcome to Critical Thinking Mastery, the power of logic and argumentation for personal improvement, your guide to navigating the complex landscape of ideas, decisions, and debates that shape our lives. As you embark on this journey, you'll discover that logic and argumentation are not just academic exercises, but powerful tools that can transform your personal and professional life. By the time you finish this book, you'll have gained a solid foundation in the key concepts of logical reasoning and effective argumentation. You'll be able to construct clear, concise arguments and evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of others' claims with newfound confidence. But this is just the beginning. With continued practice and application of these principles, you'll find yourself mastering advanced techniques that can elevate your thinking to new heights. Imagine being able to dissect complex arguments with ease, identify subtle fallacies that others miss, and craft persuasive arguments that can sway even the most skeptical audiences. These are the skills that can set you apart in your career, enhance your decision-making abilities, and even improve your personal relationships. Logic, at its core, is the framework that governs sound reasoning. It's the invisible structure that supports valid arguments and helps us distinguish between strong and weak claims. Argumentation, on the other hand, is the practical application of this logic in our everyday discourse. Together, they form the bedrock of critical thinking, allowing us to navigate the sea of information we encounter daily with discernment and clarity. In our journey through this book, we'll explore the fundamental components of logical reasoning. You'll learn about claims, premises, and conclusions, the building blocks of any argument. We'll delve into different types of reasoning, including deductive, inductive, and abductive logic, each with its own strengths and applications. You'll also gain insight into various argument structures, from simple linear arguments to more complex nested ones. These concepts aren't just theoretical constructs. They have real-world applications that can profoundly impact your life. By honing your logical thinking skills, you'll find yourself making more informed decisions, both big and small. From weighing the pros and cons of a career move to evaluating the claims made in news articles, the principles you'll learn will serve as your compass. Moreover, mastering the art of argumentation will significantly enhance your communication skills. You'll learn to present your ideas more clearly and persuasively, whether you're giving a presentation at work, engaging in a debate with friends, or simply trying to convince your partner about your next vacation destination. The ability to construct and deliver compelling arguments is a valuable skill in any context. As we progress through this book, we'll build on these foundational concepts, gradually introducing more advanced techniques and practical applications. We'll explore how to evaluate evidence, recognize and avoid logical fallacies, and apply these skills in real-world scenarios. Each chapter will bring you closer to becoming a master of critical thinking and argumentation. Remember, the journey to mastering logic and argumentation is ongoing. While this book will equip you with essential tools and knowledge, true mastery comes with consistent practice and application. As you continue to hone these skills, you'll find that what once seemed challenging becomes second nature. Complex arguments will unravel before your eyes, and your own reasoning will become sharper and more persuasive. In the next chapter, we'll dive deeper into the anatomy of an argument. You'll learn how to dissect arguments into their component parts, a crucial skill that will serve as the foundation for everything that follows. Get ready to see the world of ideas in a whole new light as we unravel the intricate structures that underpin effective reasoning and persuasive communication. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to Grow to the Top and activate notifications to receive more self-improvement tips that will supercharge your growth. Chapter 2: The Anatomy of an Argument. In the bustling marketplace of ideas, arguments are the currency of exchange. They shape our beliefs, influence our decisions, and drive societal change. But what exactly constitutes an argument? How can we dissect and understand its inner workings? This chapter will unveil the intricate anatomy of arguments, equipping you with the tools to construct robust reasoning and dismantle flawed logic. At its core, understanding the structure of arguments is fundamental to critical thinking, logic, and effective argumentation. It's the foundation upon which all logical reasoning is built. By mastering this skill, you'll not only enhance your ability to communicate persuasively, but also sharpen your critical analysis of the arguments you encounter daily. Consider how often you're presented with arguments in your everyday life. From political debates on television to advertisements vying for your attention, from workplace discussions to personal disagreements, arguments are omnipresent. The ability to deconstruct these arguments, to see beyond their surface appeal and examine their logical structure, is an invaluable skill in our information-rich world. Let's begin by breaking down the essential components of an argument: claims, premises, and conclusions. A claim is an assertion about what is true or what should be done. It's the statement that an argument aims to prove or disprove. Premises are the reasons or evidence provided to support the claim. They form the foundation of the argument, the building blocks upon which the conclusion rests. Finally, the conclusion is the main point that the argument is trying to establish, often restating the initial claim in light of the evidence presented. For instance, consider this simple argument: all mammals are warm-blooded. Whales are mammals, therefore whales are warm-blooded. Here we have two premises: all mammals are warm-blooded and whales are mammals. The conclusion, whales are warm-blooded, logically follows from these premises. Understanding these components allows you to dissect any argument you encounter, identifying its structure and evaluating its strength. It's like having X-ray vision for logic, enabling you to see beyond the surface rhetoric to the underlying reasoning. Now let's delve deeper into the types of arguments: deductive, inductive, and abductive. Each of these has its own characteristics and strengths, and recognizing them is crucial for both constructing and evaluating arguments effectively. Deductive arguments aim for certainty. When valid, they guarantee that if the premises are true, the conclusion must be true. Our whale example above is a deductive argument. If we accept that all mammals are warm-blooded and that whales are mammals, we must conclude that whales are warm-blooded. The strength of deductive arguments lies in their logical structure, but they're limited by the information contained in their premises. Inductive arguments, on the other hand, deal with probability rather than certainty. They use specific observations to draw general conclusions. For example, every swan I've ever seen has been white. Therefore, all swans are probably white. Inductive arguments can provide strong support for a conclusion, but they can't guarantee it with absolute certainty. Their strength lies in their ability to generate new knowledge based on observations, but they're always open to revision in light of new evidence. Abductive arguments, sometimes called inference to the best explanation, attempt to find the most likely explanation for a set of observations. For instance, the grass is wet this morning. It probably rained last night. This type of reasoning is common in scientific hypotheses and everyday problem solving. Abductive arguments are powerful tools for generating hypotheses, but they require careful evaluation of alternative explanations. Recognizing these different types of arguments is crucial because each has its own strengths and limitations. A deductive argument might provide certainty, but only within the limits of its premises. An inductive argument can generate new knowledge, but always carries some degree of uncertainty. An abductive argument can provide practical explanations, but requires thorough consideration of alternatives. Now that we've explored the components and types of arguments, let's turn our attention to the art of constructing strong arguments. This skill is invaluable in both personal and professional contexts. Whether you're writing a persuasive essay, making a case in a business meeting, or engaging in a debate with friends. The first step in constructing a strong argument is formulating clear claims. Your claim should be specific, precise, and free from ambiguity. Vague or overly broad claims are difficult to prove and easy to misinterpret. For example, instead of claiming social media is bad, a more precise claim might be excessive use of social media can negatively impact mental health in teenagers. Next, develop logical premises to support your claim. Your premises should be relevant to your conclusion and provide strong supporting evidence. Be sure to articulate any unstated assumptions that your argument relies on. For instance, if you're arguing that a particular policy will reduce crime rates, you might need to explicitly state and justify the assumption that the policy can be effectively implemented. When presenting your premises, consider using a mix of empirical evidence, logical reasoning, and, when appropriate, expert opinion. Empirical evidence provides concrete, observable data to support your claim. Logical reasoning demonstrates how your conclusion follows from accepted principles or previous arguments. Expert opinion can lend authority to your argument, especially in specialized fields. Finally, ensure that your conclusion logically follows from your premises. This is where many arguments falter. Even if your premises are true and well supported, your argument will be weak if your conclusion doesn't naturally flow from them. Be wary of logical leaps or unwarranted assumptions in this critical step. Remember, the goal is not just to construct an argument that sounds convincing, but one that stands up to logical scrutiny. A truly strong argument should be able to withstand challenges and counter-arguments. Speaking of challenges, let's now turn our attention to the equally important skill of deconstructing arguments. Being able to break down and analyze the arguments of others is crucial for critical thinking and effective debate. When you encounter an argument, start by identifying its main components. What is the central claim being made? What evidence or reasons premises are provided to support this claim? What conclusion is being drawn? Sometimes these elements are explicitly stated, but often you'll need to infer them from the context. As you identify these components, visualize the structure of the argument. Is it a straightforward chain of reasoning, or does it involve multiple sub-arguments supporting the main conclusion? Understanding the structure can help you evaluate the argument's overall coherence and identify any weak links in the chain of reasoning. Pay close attention to the relationships between premises and conclusions. Are the premises relevant to the conclusion? Do they provide strong support, or is the connection tenuous? Be on the lookout for hidden assumptions or unstated premises that the argument relies on. Consider this argument. Violent crime rates have decreased over the past decade. This must be due to stricter gun control laws implemented during this period. At first glance, this might seem reasonable, but when we deconstruct it, we can see potential flaws. The premise, decreased crime rates, and the conclusion, effectiveness of gun control laws, are indeed related, but the argument assumes a causal relationship without considering other possible factors that could influence crime rates. By deconstructing arguments in this way, you'll become more adept at identifying strengths and weaknesses in reasoning, both in others' arguments and in your own. This skill is invaluable in a world where we're constantly bombarded with persuasive messages and competing claims. Now, let's put these skills into practice with some exercises. Consider the following argument. Regular exercise improves cardiovascular health. Improved cardiovascular health reduces the risk of heart disease. Therefore, regular exercise reduces the risk of heart disease. Take a moment to deconstruct this argument. Identify the premises and the conclusion. What type of argument is this? Is it deductive, inductive, or abductive? Evaluate its strength. Are the premises well supported? Does the conclusion logically follow from the premises? Here's another example to analyze. Every time I've worn my lucky socks, my favorite team has won their game. I'm wearing my lucky socks today, so my team will definitely win. Again, break this argument down into its components. What assumptions does this argument rely on? What type of reasoning is being used? Can you identify any potential flaws in the logic? Exercises like these help reinforce your understanding of argument structure and sharpen your analytical skills. As you practice, you'll find yourself automatically breaking down arguments you encounter in your daily life, from news articles to casual conversations. Of course, as with any skill, mastering the anatomy of arguments takes practice, and there are common pitfalls to be aware of. One frequent mistake is misidentifying the main claim of an argument. Sometimes what appears to be the central claim is actually a supporting premise, or vice versa. Always look for the overarching point that the argument is trying to establish. Another common error is failing to recognize implicit premises. Not all components of an argument are always explicitly stated. Sometimes crucial assumptions are left unstated, either because the arguer considers them obvious or hopes they'll go unnoticed. Developing the habit of looking for these hidden premises can significantly enhance your analytical skills. Logical inconsistencies are another area where arguments often falter. These can take many forms, from contradictory premises to conclusions that don't logically follow from the given information. Train yourself to follow the logical flow of an argument from premises to conclusion, checking for coherence at each step. To avoid these pitfalls and improve your skills, consider the following strategies. First, practice active reading and listening. When encountering an argument, whether in written or verbal form, consciously engage with it. Ask yourself, what is the main point being made? What evidence is being presented? How does the conclusion relate to the premises? Second, try explaining arguments in your own words. This exercise, known as paraphrasing, can help you ensure you've truly grasped the structure and content of an argument. If you can accurately restate an argument in different terms, you've likely understood its essence. Third, engage in debates or discussions on topics that interest you. Actively constructing and defending arguments, as well as analyzing and responding to others' arguments, is one of the best ways to hone your skills. Remember, the goal isn't to win, but to engage in productive dialogue and refine your logical thinking. Finally, seek out complex arguments to analyze. As you become more comfortable with simple arguments, challenge yourself with more sophisticated reasoning. Academic papers, philosophical texts, or in-depth policy analyses can provide rich material for honing your skills. As we conclude this chapter, reflect on how understanding the anatomy of arguments empowers you as a thinker and communicator. You now possess the tools to construct more persuasive arguments and to critically evaluate the arguments you encounter. This knowledge forms the foundation for all the skills we'll develop in the coming chapters. But remember, like any skill, mastering the art of argumentation requires consistent practice and refinement. Each argument you construct or deconstruct is an opportunity to sharpen your logical faculties. As you move through your daily life, challenge yourself to identify the arguments underlying the information you consume and the discussions you engage in. In our next chapter, we'll build on this foundation by exploring the critical skill of evaluating evidence. After all, an argument is only as strong as the evidence it's built upon. We'll delve into different types of evidence, learn how to assess their quality and relevance, and develop strategies for using evidence effectively in our own arguments. Get ready to elevate your critical thinking skills to the next level as we uncover the secrets of evidence evaluation. Before we go on, if you enjoyed this book so far, make sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. It really helps the channel grow. Thank you for your support. Chapter 3: Evaluating Evidence in Arguments. In the vast landscape of argumentation, Evidence serves as the bedrock upon which persuasive claims are built. As we journey deeper into the realm of critical thinking and logical reasoning, we now turn our attention to a crucial skill, the art of evaluating evidence. This chapter will equip you with the tools to discern strong evidence from weak, relevant from irrelevant, and compelling from misleading. The importance of evidence evaluation in critical thinking, logic, and argumentation cannot be overstated. In an era where information is abundant but truth can be elusive, the ability to assess the quality of evidence is a powerful asset. It's the difference between being swayed by every persuasive speaker or flashy headline and being able to make informed, reasoned judgments about the world around you. Consider how often you encounter claims backed by supposed evidence. Politicians cite statistics to support their policies. Advertisers use testimonials to sell products, and social media is awash with memes presenting facts about complex issues. Without the ability to critically evaluate this evidence, you're at the mercy of others' interpretations and agendas. By mastering evidence evaluation, you take control of your own beliefs and decisions. Moreover, the skill of evidence evaluation enhances the persuasiveness of your own arguments. When you can confidently present well-evaluated evidence to support your claims, your arguments become more compelling and harder to refute. This skill is invaluable in both personal and professional contexts, from making a case for a promotion to engaging in public discourse on important issues. Let's begin our exploration by examining the different types of evidence commonly used in arguments. Understanding these categories will help you recognize and assess evidence more effectively. Empirical evidence is perhaps the most straightforward type. It consists of observable, measurable data derived from experiments, surveys, or direct observations. For instance, if you're arguing about the effectiveness of a new medication, clinical trial results would be empirical evidence. This type of evidence is often considered the most robust, especially in scientific and academic contexts, because it can be independently verified and replicated. Anecdotal evidence, on the other hand, consists of personal stories or individual experiences. While compelling and often emotionally powerful, anecdotal evidence is generally considered weaker than empirical evidence because it may not be representative of broader trends or experiences. However, anecdotal evidence can be valuable in certain contexts, such as illustrating the human impact of policies or providing insights into rare or understudied phenomena. Expert testimony is another important form of evidence. This involves citing the opinions or findings of recognized authorities in a particular field. The strength of expert testimony depends largely on the credibility and expertise of the source, as well as how current and relevant their knowledge is to the specific claim being made. Historical evidence draws on records, artifacts, and documented events from the past. This type of evidence is crucial in arguments about historical trends, the origins of current situations, or predictions about future outcomes based on past patterns. Statistical evidence involves the use of numerical data to support claims. This can be a powerful form of evidence when used correctly, as it can reveal patterns and trends that might not be apparent from individual cases. However, statistical evidence requires careful interpretation and can be misleading if presented without proper context. Analogical evidence involves drawing comparisons between similar situations or phenomena to support a claim. While not as strong as direct empirical evidence, well-constructed analogies can be persuasive, especially when dealing with complex or abstract concepts. Now that we've outlined the main types of evidence, let's delve into the crucial task of assessing evidence quality. The strength of an argument often hinges on the quality of its supporting evidence, so developing a keen eye for evidence assessment is essential. The first criterion to consider is relevance. Even the most robust and well-documented evidence is useless if it doesn't directly relate to the claim being made. Ask yourself, does this evidence actually support the specific point being argued? Sometimes, evidence may be tangentially related but not truly relevant to the core claim. For example, if someone argues that a particular diet plan is effective for weight loss, and cites a study showing that participants felt more energetic, that evidence, while potentially interesting, isn't directly relevant to the claim about weight loss. Always be on the lookout for evidence that seems impressive but doesn't actually address the central point of the argument. Reliability is another crucial factor in evidence evaluation. This involves assessing the source of the evidence and the methods used to obtain it. For empirical evidence, consider whether the study was well designed, used appropriate methods, and has been replicated. For expert testimony, evaluate the credentials and potential biases of the expert. For historical evidence, consider the reliability of the historical sources. Be particularly wary of evidence from sources with clear biases or conflicts of interest. This doesn't necessarily mean the evidence is false, but it does warrant extra scrutiny. Also, be cautious of evidence that hasn't been peer-reviewed or independently verified, especially when it makes extraordinary claims. The concept of validity in evidence evaluation refers to whether the evidence actually proves what it claims to prove. This is particularly important when dealing with statistical or experimental evidence. Look out for logical leaps or unwarranted assumptions in the interpretation of data. For instance, a study might show a correlation between two factors, but that doesn't necessarily prove causation. If a study finds that people who eat ice cream more frequently have a higher rate of sunburn, it would be invalid to conclude that ice cream causes sunburn. There might be a common factor, like spending more time outdoors in summer, that explains both observations. Soundness in argumentation refers to whether the evidence, even if valid, is based on true premises. This is where your broader knowledge and critical thinking skills come into play. Does the evidence align with what you know about the world? If it contradicts established facts or theories, is there a compelling reason why? As you evaluate evidence, it's also crucial to consider its comprehensiveness. Does the argument present a balanced view of the available evidence, or is it cherry-picking data that supports its claim while ignoring contradictory information? Be skeptical of arguments that rely on a single study or piece of evidence, especially when dealing with complex issues. Another important aspect of evidence evaluation is recognizing the difference between quantity and quality. An argument that presents a long list of sources or data points might seem impressive at first glance, but quantity doesn't necessarily equate to quality. A single, well-conducted study might provide stronger evidence than dozens of poorly designed or irrelevant ones. Now, let's turn our attention to a particularly challenging aspect of evidence evaluation: recognizing patterns and correlations. The human brain is naturally inclined to seek patterns, which can be both a strength and a weakness in critical thinking. On one hand, pattern recognition allows us to make sense of complex information and draw insights from data. On the other hand, we can sometimes see patterns where none truly exist, leading to faulty conclusions. One of the most common pitfalls in this area is confusing correlation with causation. Just because two things occur together doesn't mean that one causes the other. For example, there might be a correlation between ice cream sales and the number of drownings in a given period. But it would be a mistake to conclude that ice cream causes drownings. Instead, both are likely influenced by a third factor: warm weather, which leads to both increased ice cream consumption and more people swimming. To avoid this trap, always look for alternative explanations when you encounter correlational evidence. Consider what other factors might influence both variables. Look for studies that control for potential confounding factors or that manipulate variables to test for causal relationships. When identifying patterns and trends, it's also important to be aware of the risk of overgeneralization. Just because a pattern holds true in one context doesn't mean it applies universally. Be cautious of arguments that make sweeping generalizations based on limited data or specific cases. For instance, if a study finds a particular teaching method effective in a small, affluent school district, it would be an overgeneralization to conclude that this method would be equally effective in all schools nationwide. Different contexts, such as available resources, student demographics, or cultural factors, could significantly impact the effectiveness of the method. Another crucial skill in evidence evaluation is the ability to make valid predictions based on available data. This involves not only recognizing patterns, but also understanding their limitations and potential for change. When evaluating predictive claims, consider the following. 1. The quality and relevance of the historical data being used for prediction. 2. The stability of the factors involved. Are the conditions likely to remain similar, or are there reasons to expect significant changes? 3. The complexity of the system being predicted. More complex systems with many interacting factors are generally harder to predict accurately. 4. The track record of similar predictions in the past. Remember, even the most well-supported predictions come with a degree of uncertainty. Be wary of arguments that claim to predict complex outcomes with absolute certainty. To solidify these concepts, let's engage in some practical exercises. Consider the following pieces of evidence and think about how you would evaluate them. 1. A newspaper article claims that a new study shows chocolate consumption leads to weight loss. The study involved 15 participants over a 2-week period. 2. An expert in economics argues that a certain policy will lead to job growth, citing their 30 years of experience in the field. 3. A social media post goes viral, claiming that a particular herb can cure a range of serious illnesses, backed by numerous testimonials from users. 4. A scientific paper finds a strong correlation between hours spent on social media and rates of depression among teenagers. For each of these, consider what type of evidence is being presented. How would you assess its relevance, reliability, and validity? What additional information would you want to know to better evaluate the evidence? As you work through these examples, you might notice some common pitfalls in evidence evaluation. One frequent error is giving too much weight to dramatic or emotionally compelling evidence while ignoring more mundane but potentially more reliable data. Another is failing to consider the context in which evidence was gathered or presented. To improve your evidence evaluation skills, consider these strategies. 1. Always seek out original sources. Don't rely solely on someone else's interpretation of evidence. If a news article cites a study, try to find and read the actual study. 2. Look for consensus among experts in the field, especially for complex or technical topics. While consensus isn't infallible, it's often a good starting point. 3. Be aware of your own biases. We all have tendencies to more readily accept evidence that confirms our existing beliefs. Challenge yourself to critically evaluate evidence even when it supports your viewpoint. 4. Practice evaluating evidence in everyday situations. Apply these skills to advertisements, news articles, or casual claims made by friends and family. 5. Familiarize yourself with common statistical concepts and pitfalls. Understanding ideas like sample size, margin of error, and statistical significance will greatly enhance your ability to evaluate quantitative evidence. 6. Develop a healthy skepticism, but avoid cynicism. The goal is not to dismiss all evidence, but to critically examine it before accepting or rejecting claims. As we conclude this chapter, reflect on how these skills in evidence evaluation build upon the argument analysis techniques we explored earlier. By combining a strong understanding of argument structure with the ability to critically evaluate evidence, you're developing a powerful toolkit for navigating the complex world of ideas and information. Remember, mastering evidence evaluation is an ongoing process. Each time you encounter a new claim or argument, you have an opportunity to practice and refine these skills. As you do so, you'll find yourself becoming a more discerning consumer of information and a more persuasive communicator of your own ideas. In our next chapter, we'll delve into the world of logical fallacies. These common errors in reasoning can undermine even the most seemingly persuasive arguments. By learning to recognize and avoid these pitfalls, you'll further sharpen your critical thinking skills and become an even more effective reasoner and communicator. Prepare to uncover the hidden flaws that can lurk within arguments as we explore the fascinating realm of logical fallacies. Chapter 4: Logical Fallacies and How to Avoid Them. In the intricate tapestry of human reasoning, Logical fallacies are the loose threads that can unravel even the most carefully constructed arguments. As we continue our journey through the realm of critical thinking and argumentation, we now turn our attention to these common pitfalls of reasoning. Understanding logical fallacies is not just an academic exercise. It's a vital skill that can sharpen your thinking, strengthen your arguments, and help you navigate the often murky waters of public discourse. The importance of recognizing and avoiding logical fallacies in critical thinking, logic, and argumentation cannot be overstated. These errors in reasoning can be deceptively persuasive, leading us to accept flawed conclusions or make poor decisions. By learning to identify and avoid fallacies, you're not only protecting yourself from faulty reasoning, but also enhancing your ability to construct robust, compelling arguments. Consider how often you encounter arguments in your daily life, in conversations, in the media, in advertising, and in political discourse. Many of these arguments, despite their surface-level appeal, may be built on logical fallacies. By developing your ability to spot these fallacies, you're equipping yourself with a powerful tool for critical analysis. You'll be able to see beyond rhetorical flourishes and emotional appeals to evaluate the true logical strength of an argument. Moreover, understanding logical fallacies can significantly improve your own argumentation skills. By knowing the common pitfalls to avoid, you can craft arguments that are more logically sound and persuasive. This skill is invaluable in both personal and professional contexts, from writing academic papers to making business presentations or engaging in public debates. Let's begin our exploration by examining some of the most common logical fallacies. We'll start with formal fallacies, which are errors in the logical structure of an argument, regardless of its content. One of the most frequent formal fallacies is affirming the consequent. This fallacy takes the form: if Q, Q. Therefore, for example, if it's raining, the streets are wet. The streets are wet. Therefore, it's raining. While this may seem logical at first glance, it's actually invalid. The streets could be wet for other reasons, like a water main break or street cleaning. This fallacy illustrates the danger of assuming that a sufficient condition is also a necessary one. Another common formal fallacy is denying the antecedent, which takes the form: if P, not P, therefore not Q. For instance, if you study hard, you'll pass the exam. You didn't study hard. Therefore, you won't pass the exam. Again, this reasoning is invalid. You might pass the exam through other means, like prior knowledge or an easy test. This fallacy reminds us to be cautious about drawing conclusions from negated conditions. The undistributed middle is another formal fallacy that occurs in syllogisms. It takes the form: all A or B, all C, therefore all A or C. For example, all dogs are mammals. All cats are mammals. Therefore, all dogs are cats. The error here is in assuming that because two things share a common property, they must be the same. This fallacy underscores the importance of careful reasoning when dealing with categories and classifications. While formal fallacies deal with the structure of arguments, informal fallacies relate to the content of arguments. These are often more subtle and can be quite persuasive if not carefully examined. Let's explore some common informal fallacies. The ad hominem fallacy involves attacking the person making an argument rather than addressing the argument itself. For example, you can't trust Dr. Smith's research on climate change because she drives a gas-guzzling SUV. This fallacy attempts to discredit an argument by criticizing the arguer, but the personal characteristics or actions of the arguer don't necessarily have any bearing on the validity of their argument. Ad hominem attacks are unfortunately common in public discourse and can derail productive debates. The straw man fallacy involves misrepresenting an opponent's argument to make it easier to attack. For instance, Person A: we should invest more in public transportation. So you want to ban all cars? That's ridiculous and would destroy our economy. Here, Person B has exaggerated and distorted Person A's position, creating a straw man that's easier to argue against. This fallacy is particularly pernicious because it can make the person committing it appear to win the argument while avoiding the actual point of contention. The appeal to authority fallacy occurs when someone argues that a claim is true because a perceived authority figure says it is, without providing additional evidence. For example, famous actress Jane Doe says this diet plan is the best, so it must be effective. While expert opinion can be valuable evidence, it's not infallible. This fallacy reminds us to evaluate the relevance of the authority's expertise and to look for supporting evidence beyond just the authority's word. The bandwagon fallacy, also known as an appeal to popularity, argues that something is true or good because it's popular. For instance, everyone is buying this brand of smartphone, so it must be the best one. This fallacy ignores the possibility that the majority can be wrong and overlooks individual needs or circumstances that might make a popular choice unsuitable for everyone. Another common fallacy is the false dilemma or black and white thinking. This fallacy presents a situation as having only two possible outcomes when there are actually more options. For example, either we cut all environmental regulations or we'll destroy the economy. We can't afford to lose jobs, so we must eliminate all these regulations. This argument ignores the possibility of a balanced approach that considers both environmental protection and economic growth. False dilemmas can be particularly persuasive because they simplify complex issues into easily digestible choices. The slippery slope fallacy argues that a relatively small first step will inevitably lead to a chain of related events resulting in a significant and often negative effect. For instance, if we allow same-sex marriage, next people will want to marry animals and society will collapse. This fallacy exaggerates the potential consequences of an action without providing evidence for the alleged chain of events. While considering potential consequences is important, this fallacy takes it to an unreasonable extreme. Now that we've explored some common fallacies, let's discuss techniques for identifying them in arguments. The first step is to cultivate a habit of critical listening and reading. When you encounter an argument, take a moment to break it down into its components. What is the main claim? What evidence or reasoning is provided to support it? Look for emotional appeals that might be masking logical weaknesses. While emotions can be powerful and valid in certain contexts, they shouldn't be used as a substitute for sound reasoning. Be particularly wary of arguments that seem designed to provoke fear, anger, or other strong emotions without providing substantive logical support. Be mindful of how words are used in arguments. Flawed reasoning frequently employs unclear terminology, double meanings, or emotionally charged language. For example, the moving the goalpost tactic is often used to dismiss evidence that contradicts a statement. Person A: all professional athletes are in peak physical condition. Actually, there's a sumo wrestler who's considered obese but is still a top competitor. Well, I meant all professional athletes in mainstream sports are in peak physical condition. This strategy attempts to maintain a broad claim by altering the original assertion, in this instance, the definition of professional athletes, to exclude contradictory evidence. Another key strategy is to look for hidden assumptions in arguments. Many fallacies rely on unstated premises that, when examined, turn out to be questionable or false. For example, the appeal to nature fallacy assumes that what is natural is inherently good or right. Herbal remedies are natural, so they must be better than synthetic medicines. This argument assumes that natural always equals better, which is not necessarily true. When you suspect a fallacy, try to rephrase the argument in standard form, premises followed by a conclusion. This can often make logical flaws more apparent. Also, consider whether the argument would still be convincing if applied to a different context. Many fallacious arguments fall apart when applied to analogous situations. Now, let's turn our attention to avoiding fallacies in your own reasoning and argumentation. The first step is to cultivate intellectual humility. Recognize that everyone, including yourself, is capable of fallacious reasoning. By approaching your own thoughts with a critical eye, you're more likely to catch potential fallacies before they make it into your arguments. When constructing an argument, take time to examine your premises carefully. Are they well supported? Are there any hidden assumptions that need to be addressed? Consider potential counter-arguments and how you might respond to them. This process can often reveal weaknesses in your reasoning that you can then address. Be particularly cautious about generalizing from limited evidence. The fallacy of hasty generalization occurs when we draw broad conclusions from insufficient data. For instance, I met 2 rude people from New York, so New Yorkers must be rude. To avoid this, always consider whether your sample size is large enough and representative enough to support your conclusion. Another important strategy is to be mindful of your own biases. We all have cognitive biases that can lead us into fallacious reasoning. For example, confirmation bias can lead us to accept arguments that support our existing beliefs too readily while subjecting opposing views to much harsher scrutiny. By being aware of these biases, we can make a conscious effort to counteract them in our reasoning. When making causal claims, be sure to consider alternative explanations. The post hoc ergo propter hoc, after this, therefore because of this, fallacy assumes that because one event followed another, the first event caused the second. For example, I wore my lucky socks and my team won the game, so my socks must have brought good luck. To avoid this, always consider other possible causes and look for evidence of a genuine causal relationship beyond mere temporal sequence. Practice articulating your arguments clearly and precisely. Vague or ambiguous language can often hide logical flaws. By expressing your thoughts clearly, you make it easier to spot and correct any fallacies in your reasoning. Let's engage in some practical exercises to reinforce these concepts. Consider the following arguments and try to identify any fallacies they might contain. 1. Scientists have been wrong before, so we shouldn't trust their claims about climate change. 2. Either we allow unrestricted gun ownership or we'll end up living in a totalitarian state. 3. This new government policy must be good because 60% of people support it. 4. How can you argue against capital punishment when you've never lost a loved one to violent crime? 5. If we legalize marijuana, it's only a matter of time before all drugs are legal and society descends into chaos. As you work through these examples, consider what type of fallacy, if any, is being committed. How would you rephrase the argument to make it logically sound? What additional information or reasoning would be needed to support the conclusion effectively? Remember, the goal of identifying fallacies isn't to win arguments or dismiss others' viewpoints out of hand. Rather, it's to promote clearer, more logical thinking and more productive discussions. When you spot a fallacy in someone else's argument, try to address it constructively. Instead of simply pointing out the flaw, you might ask questions that guide the other person to recognize the issue themselves. For example, if someone makes a hasty generalization, you might ask, "Do you think that experience is representative of all cases? Are there other factors we should consider?" This approach can lead to more fruitful conversations and mutual understanding. As we conclude this chapter, reflect on how the ability to recognize and avoid logical fallacies builds upon the skills we've developed in previous chapters. By combining your understanding of argument structure, evidence evaluation, and now fallacy recognition, you're developing a comprehensive toolkit for critical thinking and effective argumentation. Remember, mastering the art of fallacy-free reasoning is an ongoing process. Each argument you encounter or construct is an opportunity to practice these skills. As you continue to hone your ability to spot and avoid fallacies, you'll find yourself becoming a more discerning consumer of information and a more persuasive communicator of your own ideas. In our next chapter, we'll explore advanced techniques in argumentation. We'll delve into strategies for constructing more complex and nuanced arguments, techniques for addressing counter-arguments effectively, and methods for enhancing the persuasive power of your reasoning. Prepare to take your argumentation skills to the next level as we uncover the secrets of advanced logical discourse. Chapter 5: Advanced Techniques in Argumentation. As we venture deeper into the realm of critical thinking and logical reasoning, we now turn our attention to advanced techniques in argumentation. Having built a solid foundation in understanding argument structure, evaluating evidence, and recognizing logical fallacies, we're now ready to elevate our skills to a higher level. This chapter will equip you with sophisticated strategies to construct more nuanced arguments, address complex issues, and engage in high-level discourse. The importance of mastering advanced argumentation techniques cannot be overstated in our increasingly complex world. As the issues we face become more intricate and multifaceted, the ability to navigate complex arguments and present sophisticated reasoning becomes invaluable. Whether you're engaged in academic research, professional decision-making, or public discourse on important societal issues, these advanced skills will set you apart as a thoughtful and persuasive communicator. Moreover, advanced argumentation techniques enhance your ability to understand and engage with complex ideas. They allow you to dig deeper into issues, uncover hidden assumptions, and synthesize diverse perspectives. This not only makes you a more effective arguer, but also a more insightful thinker overall. Let's begin by exploring analytical thinking, a cornerstone of advanced argumentation. Analytical thinking involves breaking down complex issues into their constituent parts, examining the relationships between these parts, and synthesizing this information to gain deeper insights. One powerful technique for deep analysis is the use of conceptual frameworks. A conceptual framework is a tool that helps organize and structure your thinking about a complex topic. It typically involves identifying key concepts, variables, or factors relevant to the issue at hand and mapping out how they relate to each other. For example, if you were analyzing the factors contributing to climate change, your conceptual framework might include elements such as greenhouse gas emissions, deforestation, industrial processes, and global energy consumption patterns. You would then explore how these factors interact, their relative importance, and potential feedback loops. To develop a useful conceptual framework, 1. Start by brainstorming all relevant factors or concepts related to your topic. 2. Group related concepts together and identify overarching categories. 3. Map out the relationships between different elements. Are some factors causes and others effects? Are there mediating variables? 4. Consider the strength and direction of these relationships. Are some connections stronger or more critical than others? 5. Look for potential feedback loops or cyclical relationships. Using a conceptual framework allows you to approach complex problems systematically, ensuring you don't overlook important aspects and helping you identify key points of leverage or intervention. Another powerful analytical technique is the use of counterfactuals. This involves asking what-if questions to explore alternative scenarios. By imagining how things might have been different if certain factors were changed, you can gain insights into the relative importance of different variables and the potential consequences of various actions. For instance, in a historical analysis, you might ask, what if the Allied powers had not broken the Enigma code during World War II? This counterfactual thinking can help illuminate the significance of code breaking in the war's outcome and provide insights into the role of intelligence in warfare more broadly. When using counterfactuals, 1. Be specific about what factor you're changing in your hypothetical scenario. 2. Consider both immediate and long-term consequences of this change. 3. Think about how other factors might have adjusted in response to this change. 4. Use your knowledge of relevant systems and historical patterns to inform your speculation. 5. Be cautious about drawing firm conclusions from counterfactuals, as they are inherently speculative. As you apply these analytical techniques to complex problems, you'll find yourself developing more nuanced and insightful arguments. You'll be better equipped to identify the core issues in a debate, understand the interplay of various factors, and propose more targeted and effective solutions. Now, let's turn our attention to persuasive argumentation. While logical consistency is crucial, truly effective argumentation also requires the ability to connect with your audience and present your ideas in a compelling manner. Here, we'll explore the classical rhetorical concepts of ethos, pathos, and logos, and how to integrate them into your arguments. Ethos relates to the credibility and character of the speaker. In advanced argumentation, establishing strong ethos goes beyond just stating your credentials. It involves demonstrating your deep understanding of the topic, acknowledging the complexity of the issue, and showing respect for alternative viewpoints. Some strategies to enhance your ethos include 1. Clearly articulating the scope and limitations of your argument. 2. Acknowledging areas of uncertainty or debate within your field. 3. Fairly presenting opposing viewpoints before refuting them. 4. Using precise, field-specific language appropriately. 5. Demonstrating ethical reasoning and a commitment to truth-seeking. Pathos involves appealing to the emotions and values of your audience. While emotional appeals should never replace logical reasoning, they can be powerful tools when used appropriately to illustrate the importance or impact of your argument. Advanced use of pathos might involve 1. Using vivid, concrete examples to illustrate abstract concepts. 2. Crafting narratives that help the audience connect personally with the issue. 3. Appealing to shared values or aspirations. 4. Using metaphors or analogies to make complex ideas more relatable. 5. Balancing emotional appeals with logical reasoning to maintain credibility. Logos, of course, refers to the logical content of your argument. At an advanced level, this involves not just avoiding fallacies, but constructing complex, multi-layered arguments. Some techniques for enhancing your use of logos include 1. Developing extended chains of reasoning, clearly showing how each step follows from the previous one. 2. Using multiple lines of evidence that converge on your conclusion. 3. Anticipating and addressing potential counter-arguments proactively. 4. Employing statistical reasoning and probability theory where appropriate. 5. Using formal logical notation for particularly complex arguments to ensure clarity and consistency. The art of advanced argumentation lies in skillfully blending ethos, pathos, and logos to create a compelling and persuasive case. Your goal is not just to prove your point logically, but to do so in a way that resonates with your audience and motivates them to consider or act on your ideas. One powerful technique for enhancing the persuasiveness of your arguments is the use of strategic concessions. This involves acknowledging the strengths of opposing viewpoints or the limitations of your own position. Far from weakening your argument, strategic concessions can actually strengthen it by demonstrating your fairness and comprehensive understanding of the issue. For example, if you're arguing for a particular policy change, you might say something like, "While it's true that this policy would involve significant upfront costs, as our opponents have rightly pointed out, we believe the long-term benefits far outweigh these initial investments. Let me explain why." This approach accomplishes several things. 1. It demonstrates that you've considered opposing viewpoints seriously. 2. It enhances your credibility by showing you're not blindly partisan. 3. It allows you to frame the terms of the debate by acknowledging weaker points and focusing on your stronger arguments. 4. It can disarm potential critics by addressing their concerns proactively. Another advanced technique is the use of nested arguments. This involves constructing arguments within arguments, often using the conclusion of one line of reasoning as a premise for another. This allows you to build complex, multi-layered cases for your position. For instance, you might structure a nested argument like this. Argument 1. Premise A. Increased education levels are correlated with higher economic growth. Premise B. Country X has significantly increased its education spending over the past decade. Conclusion 1 premise. C. Country X is likely to experience higher economic growth. Argument 2. Premise C. Country X is likely to experience higher economic growth. Premise D. Economic growth is associated with improved quality of life metrics. Conclusion to premise E. Country X is likely to see improvements in quality of life. Argument 3. Premise E. Country X is likely to see improvements in quality of life. Premise F. Improvements in quality of life tend to lead to greater political stability. Conclusion 3. Country X is likely to experience greater political stability in the coming years. This nested structure allows you to build a complex argument step by step, with each conclusion serving as a building block for the next level of reasoning. Now, let's discuss the crucial skill of addressing counter-arguments. In advanced argumentation, it's not enough to simply make your case. You must also anticipate and address potential objections to your position. This demonstrates the depth of your thinking and the robustness of your argument. The first step in effectively addressing counterarguments is to identify potential objections to your position. This requires intellectual honesty and the ability to see the issue from multiple perspectives. Some strategies for identifying potential counterarguments include: 1. Researching opposing viewpoints thoroughly. 2. Engaging in discussions with people who disagree with you. 3. Trying to argue the opposite position yourself as a thought exercise. 4. Considering different stakeholder perspectives on the issue. 5. Examining historical debates on similar topics. Once you've identified potential counterarguments, the next step is to analyze them carefully. Are they based on different fundamental values? Do they challenge your evidence or your reasoning? Are they pointing out potential negative consequences of your position? After analysis, you need to decide how to address each counterargument. There are several approaches you might take. 1. Refutation. If the counterargument is based on faulty reasoning or inaccurate information, you can directly refute it by pointing out the flaws. 2. Concession and rebuttal. If the counterargument has some merit, you might concede the point partially, but then explain why your position still holds despite this. 3. Weighing. You might acknowledge the counterargument as valid, but demonstrate why your position is still preferable when all factors are considered. 4. Synthesis. In some cases, you might be able to incorporate elements of the counterargument into a more nuanced version of your own position. Let's look at an example of how you might address a counterargument in an advanced manner. Critics of this policy have argued that it could lead to job losses in certain sectors. This is a valid concern that deserves serious consideration. Indeed, our economic models suggest that there could be a 2 to 3% reduction in jobs in the manufacturing sector in the short term. However, this needs to be weighed against the projected 5 to 7% increase in jobs in the green energy sector over the same period. Moreover, our analysis indicates that the long-term economic benefits of transitioning to sustainable energy sources far outweigh these short-term disruptions. That said, we acknowledge the need for robust transition programs to support workers affected by these changes, which is why our proposal includes significant funding for job retraining and placement services. This response demonstrates several advanced argumentation techniques. 1. It acknowledges the validity of the criticism, enhancing the arguer's credibility. 2. It provides specific data showing a command of the facts. 3. It weighs short-term costs against long-term benefits. 4. It demonstrates consideration of affected stakeholders and proposes solutions. 5. It maintains the overall argument while incorporating elements of the counterargument. As we delve deeper into advanced argumentation, it's important to discuss the concept of meta-argumentation. This involves arguing about the nature of the argument itself, the ground rules, the framing of the debate, or the standards of evidence that should be applied. For example, in a debate about climate change policy, you might engage in meta-argumentation by discussing whether economic models or scientific climate models should be given more weight in decision-making. Or, in a legal argument, you might argue about which precedents are most relevant to the case at hand. Meta-argumentation can be a powerful tool because it allows you to shape the terms of the debate. By successfully arguing for a particular framing or standard of evidence, you can significantly influence the course of the entire discussion. Another advanced technique is the use of Tolman's model of argument. Developed by philosopher Stephen Tolman, this model provides a more nuanced way of analyzing and constructing arguments. It consists of 6 components. 1. Claim, the main point of the argument. 2. Ground, the facts or evidence that support the claim. 3. Warrant, the principle that connects the ground to the claim. 4. Backing, additional support for the warrant. 5. Qualifier, words that limit the strength of the argument, e.g., most, usually, typically. 6. Rebuttal, exceptions to the claim. Using Tolman's model allows you to create more sophisticated arguments by explicitly stating your warrants and backings, and by using qualifiers to accurately represent the strength of your claim. It also provides a framework for identifying potential weaknesses in your argument or in others' arguments. As we near the end of this chapter, let's engage in some practical exercises to reinforce these advanced argumentation techniques. 1. Choose a complex, multifaceted issue, e.g. healthcare reform, climate change policy, educational system overhaul. Develop a conceptual framework for analyzing this issue, identifying key factors and their interrelationships. 2. Take a position you disagree with on a controversial topic. Try to construct the strongest possible argument for this position using the principles of ethos, pathos, and logos. 3. Identify a nested argument in a scholarly article or opinion piece. Break it down into its component arguments and analyze how they build upon each other. 4. Choose an argument you've made in the past. Identify potential counterarguments and practice addressing them using the techniques discussed in this chapter. 5. Take a simple argument and expand it using Tolman's model, explicitly stating the warrant, backing, and qualifiers. As you work through these exercises, you may encounter some common challenges. One frequent issue is the temptation to oversimplify complex issues to make them more manageable. While some simplification is often necessary, be careful not to lose important nuances in the process. Another common pitfall is becoming so focused on the logical structure of your argument that you lose sight of its persuasive impact. Remember, even the most logically sound argument will fail if it doesn't connect with your audience. Strive to balance logical rigor with effective communication. To refine your skills in advanced argumentation, 1. Practice regularly. Look for opportunities to engage in complex discussions and debates. 2. Seek out diverse perspectives. Engage with people who think differently from you to broaden your understanding of issues. 3. Study exemplary arguments. Analyze speeches, essays, or debates that are widely regarded as persuasive and try to identify the techniques used. 4. Get feedback. Present your arguments to others and ask for constructive criticism. 5. Reflect on your performance. After each significant argument or debate, take time to consider what worked well and what could be improved. As we conclude this chapter, reflect on how these advanced techniques build upon the foundational skills we've developed in previous chapters. You now have a sophisticated toolkit for constructing, analyzing, and presenting complex arguments. These skills will serve you well in academic, professional, and personal contexts, allowing you to engage more effectively with the complex issues of our time. In our next chapter, we'll explore the practical applications of logic and argumentation in various real-world contexts. We'll examine how these skills can be applied to problem-solving, decision-making, and effective communication in both personal and professional settings. Prepare to see how the theoretical concepts we've explored can have a tangible impact on your daily life and long-term success. Chapter 6. Practical Applications of Logic and Argumentation. As we journey deeper into the realm of critical thinking and logical reasoning, we now turn our attention to the practical applications of the skills we've developed. The true power of logic and argumentation lies not in abstract theories, but in their ability to enhance our daily lives, improve our decision-making, and sharpen our problem-solving abilities. In this chapter, we'll explore how to apply these skills in real-world contexts, transforming you from a student of logic into a practitioner of reasoned thinking. The importance of applying logical thinking and argumentation skills in everyday life cannot be overstated. In our rapidly changing world, we're constantly bombarded with information, faced with complex decisions, and challenged to solve intricate problems. The ability to think critically and argue effectively is not just an academic exercise. It's a vital life skill that can significantly impact your personal and professional success. Consider how often you encounter situations that require careful analysis and reasoned decision-making. From choosing a career path to making investment decisions, from navigating personal relationships to engaging in public discourse on important societal issues, the skills of logic and argumentation are invaluable tools. By applying these skills consistently, you can make more informed choices, communicate more effectively, and navigate complex situations with greater confidence and clarity. Let's begin by examining how logical thinking can enhance your problem-solving abilities. Problem-solving is a critical skill in both personal and professional contexts, and the structured approach of logical reasoning can significantly improve your effectiveness in this area. The first step in effective problem-solving is to clearly identify and define the problem. This might seem straightforward, but it's often where many people stumble. Using the analytical skills we've developed, you can break down complex situations into their component parts, helping you pinpoint the true nature of the problem. For example, imagine you're a manager facing declining productivity in your team. Instead of jumping to conclusions like, "My team is lazy," or "We need to work longer hours," you would approach the problem systematically. 1. Clearly state the problem. Team productivity has decreased by X% over the past Y months. 2. Identify potential factors. This could include workload, team morale, unclear objectives, outdated tools or processes, external pressures, etc. 3. Gather data. Collect relevant information about each factor, such as employee feedback, time tracking data, project completion rates, etc. 4. Analyze relationships. How do these factors interact? Are there any correlations or potential causal relationships? By approaching the problem in this structured way, you're more likely to identify the root causes rather than just treating symptoms. Once you've clearly defined the problem, the next step is to generate potential solutions. This is where creative thinking meets logical analysis. While brainstorming ideas, you can use your critical thinking skills to evaluate each potential solution. 1. Is this solution logically connected to the identified problem? 2. What assumptions are we making about how this solution will work? 3. What potential consequences, both intended and unintended, might this solution have? How does this solution compare to alternatives in terms of effectiveness, cost, feasibility, etc.? Let's continue with our productivity example. Suppose one proposed solution is to implement a new project management software. You might analyze it like this. 1. Logical connection. If part of the productivity issue is due to inefficient task tracking and coordination, new software could potentially address this. 2. Assumptions. We're assuming that the team will adapt to the new software quickly and use it effectively. 3. Potential consequences. Positive. Better task tracking and coordination. Negative. Initial productivity dip during the learning curve. Potential resistance to change. 4. Comparison. How does this solution compare to alternatives like reorganizing team structures or providing additional training on existing tools? By systematically evaluating potential solutions in this way, you're more likely to choose an effective course of action rather than relying on gut instinct or defaulting to the most obvious solution. The final step in problem solving is implementation and evaluation. Here, your skills in constructing logical arguments come into play. You'll need to present your chosen solution to stakeholders, explaining your reasoning and addressing potential concerns. This is where the advanced argumentation techniques we discussed in the previous chapter become particularly valuable. For instance, you might construct a nested argument for implementing the new software. Argument 1. Premise A. Our team's productivity has declined primarily due to inefficient task coordination. Premise B. The new software X is designed to improve task coordination. Conclusion. 1 premise. Implementing software X is likely to improve our team's task coordination. Argument 2. Premise C. Implementing software X is likely to improve our team's task coordination. Premise D. Improved task coordination typically leads to increased productivity. Conclusion. 2 Premise E. Implementing software X is likely to increase our team's productivity. Argument 3. Premise E. Implementing software X is likely to increase our team's productivity. Premise F. Increased productivity aligns with our company's goals for this quarter. Conclusion 3. Implementing software X aligns with and supports our company's current goals. By presenting your solution in this logically structured way, you make a compelling case that's difficult to refute. Of course, you would also need to be prepared to address potential counter-arguments, such as concerns about the learning curve or implementation costs. Now, let's turn our attention to how logical thinking and argumentation skills can improve your communication. Effective communication is crucial in both personal and professional contexts, and the ability to present your ideas clearly and persuasively can significantly impact your success and relationships. One key aspect of effective communication is clarity. The analytical skills you've developed can help you organize your thoughts more coherently before you express them. Instead of rambling or jumping between loosely connected ideas, you can present your thoughts in a logical sequence that's easier for others to follow. For example, if you're explaining a complex concept to a colleague, you might structure your explanation like this. 1. Start with a clear definition or overview of the concept. 2. Break the concept down into its key components or steps. 3. Explain each component in detail using examples or analogies where appropriate. 4. Show how the components relate to each other and contribute to the overall concept. 5. Summarize the main points and relate them back to the initial overview. This structured approach helps ensure that your explanation is comprehensive and logically coherent, making it easier for your audience to understand and remember. Another crucial communication skill is the ability to engage in constructive debates and discussions. Here, your understanding of logical fallacies and advanced argumentation techniques becomes particularly valuable. You can use these skills to 1. Clearly articulate your position and the reasoning behind it. 2. Identify and respectfully point out flaws in others' arguments. 3. Recognize valid points made by others and incorporate them into your thinking. 4. Guide the discussion towards productive areas rather than getting sidetracked by irrelevant points. 5. Find common ground and work towards mutually acceptable solutions. For instance, imagine you're in a team meeting discussing whether to pursue a new project. You might apply your skills like this. 1. Clearly state your position. I believe we should pursue this project because it aligns with our long-term strategy and has potential for high returns. 2. Present your reasoning. Outline how the project aligns with strategy and provide data on potential returns. 3. Address potential counterarguments. I understand there are concerns about the initial investment required. However, our financial projections show we could recoup this investment within 18 months. 4. Engage with others' points. John, you raised a good point about potential risks. I agree we need to consider these carefully. Perhaps we could. 5. Guide the discussion. We've discussed the financial and strategic aspects. Should we now consider how this project might impact our team's workload? By applying your logical and argumentation skills in this way, you can help ensure that discussions are productive, focused, and more likely to lead to well-reasoned decisions. Let's now explore how these skills can enhance your decision-making abilities. In both personal and professional life, we're constantly faced with decisions, from the seemingly trivial to the life-changing. The ability to make well-informed, logical decisions can significantly impact your life outcomes. One powerful technique for decision-making is the use of decision matrices. This involves 1. Clearly defining the decision to be made. 2. Identifying all viable options. 3. Determining the criteria by which you'll evaluate these options. 4. Assigning weights to these criteria based on their importance. 5. Scoring each option against each criterion. 6. Calculating a total score for each option. For example, imagine you're deciding which job offer to accept. Your decision matrix might look like this. Criteria: 1. Salary 30%. 2. Career growth potential 25%. 3. Work-life balance 20%. 4. Company culture 15%. 5. Location 10%. Option: A startup company. B. Established corporation. C. Nonprofit organization. You would then score each option on each criterion, perhaps on a scale of 1-10, multiply by the weight, and sum the results. This provides a systematic way to compare options across multiple factors, helping you make a more objective decision. Of course, the key to using this technique effectively lies in your critical thinking skills. How do you determine which criteria to include? How do you assign weights to these criteria? How do you objectively score each option? How do you handle uncertainties or incomplete information? This is where your analytical skills come into play. You might use techniques like researching industry standards or seeking advice from mentors to help determine relevant criteria. Reflecting on your personal values and long-term goals to assign appropriate weights. Gathering data from multiple sources to score each option as objectively as possible. Using ranges or probability estimates to account for uncertainties. Remember, while tools like decision matrices can be helpful, they shouldn't be used blindly. Your final decision should also take into account intuition and factors that might be difficult to quantify. The goal is to use logical analysis to inform your decision, not to replace critical thinking with a mathematical formula. Another crucial aspect of decision-making is the ability to anticipate and evaluate potential consequences. This is where your skills in constructing logical arguments and considering counter-arguments become particularly valuable. For each potential decision, try to construct arguments for why it might lead to positive outcomes and arguments for why it might lead to negative outcomes. Consider both short-term and long-term consequences and think about how the decision might affect different stakeholders. For instance, if you're considering taking a job that requires relocation, you might argue: positive. 1. The new job offers higher salary and better career prospects. 2. Moving to a new city provides opportunities for personal growth and new experiences. 3. The company's innovative projects align well with my professional interests. Negative. 1. Moving away from family and friends could lead to feelings of isolation. 2. The cost of living in the new city is higher, potentially offsetting the salary increase. 3. The company's fast-paced culture might lead to work-life balance issues. By systematically considering these arguments and counterarguments, you can make a more informed decision and be better prepared for potential challenges. Now, let's explore how logical thinking and argumentation skills can be applied in specific professional contexts. Regardless of your field, these skills can significantly enhance your effectiveness and advance your career. In management and leadership roles, logical thinking is crucial for strategic planning and problem solving. Leaders often need to make decisions based on complex, sometimes conflicting information. The ability to analyze this information critically, construct sound arguments for different courses of action, and anticipate potential outcomes is invaluable. For example, a business leader considering whether to expand into a new market might use these skills to: 1. Analyze market research data to identify trends and opportunities. 2. Construct arguments for and against expansion, considering factors like potential profitability, competitive landscape, and alignment with company strengths. 3. Anticipate potential challenges and develop contingency plans. 4. Present a well-reasoned proposal to the board or investors, addressing likely concerns and counter-arguments. In fields like law or policymaking, argumentation skills are directly applicable. Lawyers need to construct persuasive arguments based on evidence and precedent, anticipate and refute counterarguments, and identify flaws in opposing arguments. Policymakers must analyze complex societal issues, evaluate potential solutions, and make compelling cases for their proposed policies. In scientific research, logical thinking is at the core of the scientific method. Researchers use deductive reasoning to form hypotheses based on existing theories, and inductive reasoning to draw broader conclusions from specific observations. They must also critically evaluate their own methods and results, anticipating and addressing potential criticisms in their research papers. Even in creative fields, logical thinking and argumentation skills can be valuable. For instance, a graphic designer pitching a new brand identity to a client might use these skills to 1. Analyze the client's needs and market position. 2. Develop a logically coherent concept that aligns with the client's goals. 3. Construct persuasive arguments for why their design choices effectively communicate the desired brand message. 4. Anticipate and address potential objections or concerns from the client. As we conclude this chapter, let's engage in some practical exercises to reinforce the application of these skills. 1. Identify a complex problem in your personal or professional life. Apply the problem-solving steps we discussed to analyze the issue and develop potential solutions. 2. Think of a recent decision you made. Retrospectively create a decision matrix for that choice. Does this analysis align with the decision you made? Why or why not? 3. Choose a controversial topic and construct arguments for both sides of the issue. Try to make each argument as strong and persuasive as possible, even if you personally disagree with one side. 4. Analyze a recent professional communication you had, e.g., a presentation, report, or important email. How could you restructure this communication using the logical organization techniques we discussed? 5. Identify a goal you want to achieve. Construct a logical argument for why this goal is important and how you plan to achieve it. Try to anticipate and address potential counter-arguments or obstacles. As you work through these exercises, you may encounter some common challenges. One frequent issue is the tendency to fall back on habitual thinking patterns rather than applying logical analysis. It takes conscious effort to step back and approach familiar situations with fresh, analytical eyes. Another common pitfall is allowing personal biases or emotions to cloud your logical thinking. While emotions and intuition have their place in decision-making, it's important to recognize when they're interfering with objective analysis. To continue refining your skills in applying logic and argumentation, 1. Make a conscious effort to apply these skills in your daily life. Look for opportunities to analyze situations more deeply or to construct more persuasive arguments. 2. Seek feedback from others. Ask colleagues or mentors to critique your problem-solving approaches or communication style. 3. Study how successful people in your field apply these skills. Look for case studies or interviews that provide insights into their decision-making processes. 4. Practice explaining complex ideas to others. Teaching or explaining a concept is an excellent way to test and improve your own understanding. 5. Regularly reflect on your experiences. After making important decisions or engaging in significant discussions, take time to consider how effectively you applied your logical thinking and argumentation skills. Remember, the goal is not to approach every situation with cold, emotionless logic. Rather, it's to develop your analytical and argumentation skills so that you can deploy them effectively when needed, complementing your emotional intelligence and intuition. As we close this chapter, reflect on how the practical application of logic and argumentation can transform your approach to daily challenges and opportunities. These skills, when consistently applied, can lead to better decisions, more persuasive communication, and more effective problem-solving. They are not just academic exercises, but powerful tools for navigating the complexities of modern life. In our next chapter, we'll explore how to cultivate a lasting logical thinking mindset. We'll discuss strategies for making critical thinking and sound argumentation habitual, overcoming common barriers to logical thinking, and fostering a culture of reasoned discourse in your personal and professional circles. Prepare to transform your cognitive habits and embed the principles of logic and argumentation into your everyday thinking. Chapter 7: Logic and Argumentation in Action. As we delve deeper into the practical realm of logic and argumentation, this chapter focuses on how these skills manifest in real-world scenarios. We'll explore how to apply the principles we've learned in various contexts, from negotiation and conflict resolution to public debates and everyday decision-making. By seeing logic and argumentation in action, you'll gain a deeper understanding of how to wield these tools effectively in your personal and professional life. The importance of mastering the application of logical thinking and argumentation skills in real-world situations cannot be overstated. In our complex, fast-paced world, the ability to think critically, argue persuasively, and negotiate effectively can be the difference between success and failure in many aspects of life. Whether you're closing a business deal, resolving a personal conflict, or engaging in public discourse, these skills will serve you well. Let's begin by examining how logical thinking and argumentation skills can enhance your negotiation abilities. Negotiation is a fundamental skill in both personal and professional contexts, from haggling over the price of a car to negotiating a salary or brokering international treaties. One key aspect of effective negotiation is the ability to identify and articulate your interests clearly. This is where your analytical skills come into play. Instead of focusing solely on your position, what you want, try to understand and express the underlying interests, why you want it. This approach often opens up more possibilities for mutually beneficial solutions. For example, imagine you're negotiating with your employer for a raise. Your position might be, I want a 10% salary increase, but your underlying interests might include 1. Feeling valued for your contributions to the company. 2. Keeping pace with the cost of living. 3. Having additional resources to support your family. 4. Aligning your compensation with industry standards for your role. By identifying these underlying interests, you can construct a more nuanced and persuasive argument. You might say something like, over the past year, I've taken on additional responsibilities and consistently exceeded my performance targets, as evidenced by specific examples. A salary increase would not only recognize these contributions, but also align my compensation with industry standards for this role, as shown by site industry salary data. This adjustment would allow me to continue investing fully in my work here while also meeting my family's needs in the face of rising living costs. This approach demonstrates logical thinking by connecting your request to concrete evidence and broader context. It also opens up possibilities for alternative solutions that might meet your underlying interests, even if a straight 10% raise isn't feasible. Another crucial aspect of negotiation is the ability to anticipate and address the other party's concerns and interests. This is where your skills in identifying potential counterarguments come into play. Try to put yourself in the other person's shoes and consider 1. What objections might they have to your proposal? 2. What are their underlying interests and priorities? 3. How might your request impact their goals or constraints? By proactively addressing these points, you can create a more compelling case and demonstrate your consideration of the other party's perspective. For instance, in our salary negotiation example, you might anticipate that your employer is concerned about setting a precedent or staying within budget constraints. You could address this by saying, I understand that the company needs to manage its budget carefully. I'm not asking for special treatment, but rather for recognition of the increased value I'm bringing to the role. Perhaps we could discuss a performance-based increase that aligns with the company's financial goals while also recognizing exceptional contributions. This approach demonstrates logical thinking by acknowledging potential objections and proposing a solution that addresses both parties' interests. Now, let's turn our attention to how logical thinking and argumentation skills can aid in conflict resolution. Conflicts are an inevitable part of human interaction, but the ability to approach them logically and argue constructively can turn potential discord into opportunities for growth and improved understanding. One key principle in conflict resolution is to focus on interests rather than positions, similar to our negotiation example. When emotions run high, it's easy to become entrenched in specific positions. However, by using your analytical skills to identify the underlying interests of all parties involved, you can often find common ground or creative solutions that address everyone's core concerns. For example, imagine you're in a conflict with a coworker over project management styles. Your position might be, we need to have daily team meetings, while your coworker's position is, daily meetings are a waste of time. Instead of arguing over these positions, try to uncover the underlying interests. Your interests might include 1. Ensuring everyone is aligned on project goals. 2. Identifying and addressing issues quickly. 3. Promoting team collaboration. Your coworker's interests might include 1. Maximizing time for focused, uninterrupted work. 2. Reducing time spent in unproductive meetings. 3. Ensuring efficient communication. By focusing on these interests, you might come up with a solution like, how about we have a brief daily check-in via our project management software, where everyone can quickly update their progress and flag any issues. We can then have a longer team meeting once a week to discuss bigger picture items and collaborate on solutions. This solution addresses both sets of interests without being tied to either initial position. Another important aspect of conflict resolution is the ability to reframe issues in a way that promotes problem solving rather than blame. This is where your skills in constructing logical arguments can be particularly useful. Instead of focusing on who is right or wrong, try to frame the conflict in terms of a shared problem that needs to be solved. For instance, instead of saying, your lack of communication is causing delays in the project, you might say, it seems we're facing challenges in keeping the project on schedule. Could we discuss how we might improve our communication processes to ensure everyone has the information they need to move forward efficiently? This reframing shifts the focus from personal blame to a shared challenge, making it easier for all parties to engage in constructive problem solving. When engaging in conflict resolution, it's also crucial to validate the other person's perspective, even if you disagree with it. This doesn't mean you have to agree with their position, but rather that you acknowledge their right to have their own viewpoint and feelings. This validation can help de-escalate emotions and create an atmosphere more conducive to logical discussion. For example, I can understand why you might feel frustrated by frequent meetings. Your time is valuable, and it's important that we use it effectively. Let's think about how we can ensure we're communicating efficiently while also respecting everyone's need for uninterrupted work time. This response acknowledges the other person's perspective while still leaving room for discussion and problem solving. Now, let's explore how logical thinking and argumentation skills can be applied in the context of public debates or discussions. Whether you're participating in a formal debate, engaging in a public forum, or simply discussing issues with friends or colleagues, these skills can help you present your ideas more effectively and engage in more productive discourse. One key principle in effective debate is to clearly define the terms of the discussion. Many arguments arise or persist due to misunderstandings about what exactly is being debated. By using your analytical skills to clearly articulate the key points of contention and ensure all parties are operating under the same definitions, you can avoid talking past each other and focus on the real issues at hand. For example, in a debate about education policy, you might start by saying, before we delve into specific arguments, let's make sure we're all on the same page about what we mean by education reform. In the context of this discussion, I propose we define it as significant changes to the public education system aimed at improving student outcomes. Does everyone agree with this definition, or would anyone like to suggest modifications? This approach sets a clear framework for the debate and helps prevent misunderstandings down the line. Another crucial skill in public debate is the ability to structure your arguments logically and coherently. This is where techniques like the Toolman model of argumentation, which we discussed in earlier chapters, can be particularly useful. Remember, a well-structured argument typically includes 1. A clear claim or position. 2. Evidence or reasons supporting that claim. 3. A warrant explaining how the evidence supports the claim. 4. Backing that supports the warrant. 5. Qualifiers that indicate the strength of the argument. 6. Potential rebuttals and responses to those rebuttals. For instance, in a debate about climate change policy, you might structure your argument like this. Claim: we need to implement a carbon tax to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Evidence: 1. Carbon emissions are a major contributor to climate change. 2. Economic studies show that carbon taxes are effective in reducing emissions. 3. Countries that have implemented carbon taxes have seen significant reductions in their carbon footprints. Warrant: by making carbon-intensive activities more expensive, a carbon tax creates a financial incentive for individuals and businesses to reduce their emissions. Backing: this approach is based on well-established economic principles of supply and demand and has been supported by numerous economists and climate scientists. Qualifier: while a carbon tax alone isn't a complete solution to climate change, it's a crucial tool that, when combined with other policies, can significantly reduce our carbon emissions. Potential rebuttal: some argue that a carbon tax would harm economic growth and disproportionately affect lower-income households. Response to rebuttal: while there may be short-term economic adjustments, studies show that the long-term economic benefits of mitigating climate change far outweigh the costs. Moreover, the policy can be designed to be revenue neutral, with proceeds redistributed to offset impacts on lower-income households. By structuring your argument in this way, you present a comprehensive, logically coherent case that anticipates and addresses potential counter-arguments. In public debates, it's also crucial to be able to identify and call out logical fallacies while avoiding them in your own arguments. This skill allows you to challenge flawed reasoning effectively and maintain the integrity of the discussion. However, it's important to do this respectfully to avoid derailing the conversation into personal attacks. For example, if someone in a debate makes an ad hominem attack, instead of responding angrily, you might say, "I appreciate your passion on this issue, but I think it would be more productive if we focused on the merits of the policy itself rather than personal characteristics. Could you elaborate on why you believe this policy wouldn't be effective?" This response redirects the conversation back to the logical argument while maintaining a respectful tone. Now, let's consider how these skills apply in everyday decision-making and discussions. While not every conversation is a formal debate, the principles of logical thinking and sound argumentation can enhance your daily interactions and decision-making processes. One key application is in evaluating information and claims you encounter in daily life, from news articles to social media posts to conversations with friends. By applying your critical thinking skills, you can 1. Identify the main claims being made. 2. Consider the evidence provided to support these claims. 3. Evaluate the credibility of the sources. 4. Recognize potential biases or logical fallacies. 5. Seek out additional information or alternative viewpoints. For example, when reading a news article about a new medical treatment, you might ask yourself, what exactly is being claimed about this treatment? What evidence is provided to support these claims? Who conducted the research, and are there any potential conflicts of interest? Has this research been peer-reviewed and replicated? Are there any dissenting opinions from other experts in the field? What are the limitations or potential side effects of this treatment? By systematically evaluating information in this way, you can make more informed decisions and avoid being misled by false or exaggerated claims. In everyday discussions, you can use your argumentation skills to express your views more clearly and persuasively. This doesn't mean turning every conversation into a debate, but rather presenting your ideas in a logical, well-supported manner. For instance, if you're discussing vacation plans with your family, instead of simply stating your preference, you might say, "I think we should consider Greece for our vacation this year. It offers a great combination of historical sites, beautiful beaches, and delicious cuisine, which aligns with everyone's interests." The current exchange rate also makes it more affordable than some other European destinations. However, we should also consider the busier tourist season in summer so we might want to look at traveling in the shoulder season for a better balance of good weather and smaller crowds. This approach presents a logical argument with supporting reasons while also acknowledging potential counterpoints. Remember, the goal in everyday discussions isn't to win arguments, but to foster mutual understanding and make better collective decisions. Use your skills to facilitate productive conversations rather than to dominate them. As we conclude this chapter, let's engage in some practical exercises to reinforce these concepts. 1. Negotiation scenario. Imagine you're negotiating for a flexible work arrangement with your employer. Develop a logical argument for your proposal, anticipating potential objections and addressing them proactively. 2. Conflict resolution. Think of a recent conflict you've experienced. Analyze the underlying interests of all parties involved and brainstorm potential solutions that could address these interests. 3. Public debate. Choose a current controversial issue. Construct a comprehensive argument for one side of the debate using the Toolman model. Then, try to anticipate and address the strongest counter-arguments. 4. Information evaluation. Select a recent news article on a topic of interest. Critically evaluate the claims made in the article, considering the evidence provided, potential biases, and any logical fallacies. 5. Everyday discussion. Think of a decision you need to make in your personal life, e.g., making a large purchase, choosing a place to live. Construct a logical argument for your preferred option, considering pros and cons and addressing potential concerns. As you work through these exercises, you may encounter some common challenges. One frequent issue is the tendency to let emotions override logical thinking, especially in heated discussions or personal conflicts. Remember, the goal is not to suppress emotions entirely, but to acknowledge them while still maintaining a logical approach to the issue at hand. Another common pitfall is the temptation to oversimplify complex issues, especially in public debates or when trying to persuade others. While it's important to communicate clearly, be careful not to ignore nuances or present false dichotomies. Strive for a balance between accessibility and accuracy in your arguments. To continue improving your skills in applying logic and argumentation in real-world situations. 1. Practice active listening. Really try to understand others' perspectives before formulating your response. 2. Seek out opportunities for constructive debate and discussion. Join a debate club, participate in online forums, or simply engage in thoughtful discussions with friends and colleagues. 3. Analyze arguments you encounter in media, literature, or everyday life. Try to identify the logical structure, evidence used, and any potential fallacies. 4. Reflect on your own decision-making processes. After making important decisions, take time to consider how you applied logical thinking and whether you could improve your approach in the future. 5. Seek feedback from others on your argumentation and persuasion skills. Ask trusted friends or mentors to critique your approach and offer suggestions for improvement. As we close this chapter, reflect on how the application of logic and argumentation can transform your interactions and decision-making processes. These skills, when applied thoughtfully and consistently, can lead to more productive negotiations, more effective conflict resolution, more persuasive public speaking, and better everyday decisions. They are powerful tools for navigating the complexities of modern life and fostering more meaningful and productive discourse in all areas of your life. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to cultivate a lasting logical thinking mindset. We'll discuss strategies for making critical thinking and sound argumentation habitual, overcoming common barriers to logical thinking, and fostering a culture of reasoned discourse in your personal and professional circles. Prepare to embed the principles of logic and argumentation into your everyday thinking, transforming not just how you argue, but how you perceive and interact with the world around you. Chapter 8. Cultivating a logic and argumentation mindset. As we approach the culmination of our journey through the realm of logic and argumentation, we now turn our attention to perhaps the most crucial aspect of all, cultivating a lasting logical thinking mindset. This chapter will explore how to embed the principles and practices we've learned into your daily life, transforming them from mere skills into habitual ways of thinking and interacting with the world. The importance of developing a logical thinking mindset cannot be overstated. While the techniques and strategies we've explored in previous chapters are powerful tools, their true potential is realized only when they become an integral part of your cognitive processes. By cultivating a logic and argumentation mindset, you're not just learning how to think critically in specific situations, but reshaping your entire approach to understanding and engaging with the world around you. This mindset is the foundation for continuous growth and improvement in your critical thinking abilities. It's what allows you to apply logical reasoning naturally and effortlessly in various contexts, from personal decision-making to professional problem-solving. Moreover, it enables you to adapt to new challenges and complex situations with greater ease and confidence. Let's begin by exploring the concept of developing long-term logical thinking skills. This isn't about memorizing a set of rules or techniques, but about training your mind to automatically approach situations from a logical perspective. It's about developing a habit of questioning assumptions, seeking evidence, and constructing sound arguments. One key aspect of developing these long-term skills is consistent practice. Just as an athlete must regularly train to maintain and improve their physical abilities, you must consistently exercise your logical thinking muscles to keep them sharp. This doesn't mean you need to set aside hours each day for formal logic exercises. Rather, it's about finding opportunities in your daily life to apply logical thinking. For instance, you might make it a habit to critically evaluate news articles you read, identifying the main claims, assessing the evidence provided, and considering potential counterarguments. Or you could practice constructing logical arguments for everyday decisions, from choosing a restaurant for dinner to planning your weekend activities. Another crucial element in developing long-term logical thinking skills is reflection. After engaging in a discussion, making a decision, or solving a problem, take a moment to reflect on your thought process. Ask yourself, 1. Did I approach this logically? 2. What assumptions did I make and were they justified? Did I consider all relevant evidence? 4. Were there any flaws in my reasoning? 5. How could I improve my approach next time? This reflective practice helps reinforce good habits and identifies areas for improvement, contributing to continuous growth in your logical thinking abilities. Building a strong foundation for continued growth also involves developing a deep understanding of the fundamental principles of logic and argumentation. While we've covered many of these principles throughout this book, it's important to regularly revisit and reinforce these concepts. Consider creating a personal logic handbook where you summarize key concepts, techniques, and principles. Regularly reviewing and updating this handbook can help solidify your understanding and serve as a quick reference when needed. Now, let's delve into the process of developing logical thinking habits. The key to forming any habit is consistency, and logical thinking is no exception. Here are some daily practices you can incorporate to enhance your logical thinking. 1. Question assumptions. Make it a habit to identify and question the assumptions underlying your own thoughts and those of others. Ask yourself, what am I taking for granted here? 2. Seek evidence. Before accepting any claim as true, ask for evidence. Make it a practice to look for supporting data or reasoning, even for claims that seem intuitively correct. 3. Consider alternative explanations. When encountering a situation or problem, challenge yourself to think of multiple possible explanations or solutions. This helps prevent jumping to conclusions and encourages more thorough analysis. 4. Practice formal logic. Spend a few minutes each day working on formal logic problems or puzzles. This can help sharpen your analytical skills and reinforce logical principles. 5. Engage in thoughtful discussions. Seek out opportunities for intellectual discourse with others. This could be through joining a debate club, participating in online forums, or simply having regular discussions with friends or colleagues on substantive topics. Building these practices into a routine is crucial for developing a logical thinking mindset. You might start by setting aside a specific time each day for logical thinking exercises, gradually increasing the duration and complexity as it becomes more habitual. For example, you could begin each morning by spending 10 minutes analyzing a news article or solving a logic puzzle. As you work to develop these habits, it's important to be aware of common barriers to logical thinking and strategies for overcoming them. One significant obstacle is cognitive bias, the tendency to think in certain ways that can lead to systematic deviations from rationality. Some common cognitive biases include 1. Confirmation bias, the tendency to search for, interpret, and recall information in a way that confirms one's pre-existing beliefs. 2. Anchoring bias, the tendency to rely too heavily on the first piece of information encountered when making decisions. 3. Availability heuristic, the tendency to overestimate the likelihood of events with greater availability in memory, which can be influenced by how recent or emotionally charged these events are. 4. Dunning-Kruger effect, the tendency for people with low ability in a specific area to overestimate their ability. Awareness of these biases is the first step in overcoming them. Once you recognize these tendencies in yourself, you can consciously work to counteract them. Strategies might include 1. Actively seeking out information that challenges your existing beliefs. 2. Considering multiple reference points before making a decision, rather than anchoring on the first piece of information. 3. Using statistical data rather than relying solely on easily recalled examples. 4. Regularly seeking feedback and being open to criticism to combat overconfidence. Another common barrier to logical thinking is emotional reasoning, the tendency to believe something is true based on how we feel rather than objective evidence. While emotions are an important part of the human experience and can provide valuable intuition, they can also cloud our judgment if not balanced with rational analysis. To overcome emotional reasoning, 1. Practice emotional awareness. Recognize when your emotions are influencing your thinking. 2. Allow a cooling off period. When faced with emotionally charged decisions, give yourself time to let initial emotional reactions subside before analyzing the situation. 3. Separate feelings from facts. Explicitly list out the objective facts of a situation separate from your feelings about it. 4. Use structured decision-making tools. Employ techniques like decision matrices or cost-benefit analyses to inject objectivity into your thinking. Fostering a culture of logical thinking extends beyond individual practice. By encouraging logical thinking in groups and organizations, you can create an environment that reinforces and amplifies these skills. In a group setting, logical thinking can lead to more effective problem-solving, better decision-making, and more productive discussions. To promote logical thinking in groups, 1. Encourage questioning. Create an environment where it's acceptable and encouraged to ask questions and challenge assumptions. 2. Practice structured discussions. Use frameworks like the Socratic method or formal debate structures to guide group discussions. 3. Implement peer review processes. Have team members critically evaluate each other's ideas and arguments. 4. Celebrate good thinking. Recognize and reward instances of clear, logical reasoning, even if they don't always lead to the right answer. In organizational settings, fostering a culture of logical thinking can significantly impact performance and innovation. Strategies might include 1. Incorporating critical thinking skills into hiring and promotion criteria. 2. Providing training in logic and argumentation for employees at all levels. 3. Implementing decision-making processes that require explicit logical justification. 4. Encouraging evidence-based practices across all departments. To reinforce these concepts, let's engage in some practical exercises. 1. Develop a daily logical thinking routine. Create a plan for incorporating logical thinking exercises into your daily life. This might include activities like analyzing a news article, solving a logic puzzle, or reflecting on a decision you made during the day. 2. Group logical thinking activity. With a group of friends or colleagues, choose a complex problem or issue. Have each person present their perspective, focusing on logical argumentation. Then, as a group, work to synthesize these viewpoints into a comprehensive analysis of the issue. 3. Bias identification exercise. Over the course of a week, try to identify instances of cognitive bias in your own thinking or in the media you consume. Keep a journal of these observations and reflect on how you might counteract these biases. 4. Logical culture brainstorming. If you're in a leadership position, brainstorm ways you could foster a more logical thinking culture in your team or organization. If you're not in a leadership role, consider how you might promote logical thinking among your peers. As you work to cultivate a logic and argumentation mindset, be aware of common pitfalls. 1. Over-reliance on logic. While logical thinking is incredibly valuable, it's important to remember that emotions and intuition also play important roles in human cognition and decision-making. The goal is to balance logical analysis with emotional intelligence. 2. Analysis paralysis. Sometimes the desire to think through every possible angle can lead to decision paralysis. Remember that in many real-world situations, you'll need to make decisions with incomplete information. 3. Perceived arrogance. As you develop your logical thinking skills, be mindful of how you communicate your ideas to others. Strive to be persuasive without appearing condescending. 4. Burnout. Like any skill, logical thinking requires energy. Be careful not to exhaust yourself by trying to apply intense logical analysis to every minor decision in your life. To address these challenges, 1. Practice integrating logical thinking with emotional intelligence and intuition. 2. Set time limits for analysis when making decisions to avoid paralysis. 3. Focus on using your logical thinking skills to understand and empathize with others' perspectives, not just to prove your own point. 4. Prioritize which decisions or problems warrant deep logical analysis and which can be handled more intuitively. As we conclude this chapter, reflect on how cultivating a logic and argumentation mindset can transform not just your thinking, but your entire approach to life. By embedding these skills and practices into your daily routine, you're equipping yourself with a powerful toolkit for navigating the complexities of the modern world. Remember, developing this mindset is a lifelong journey. There will always be new challenges to tackle, new biases to overcome, and new depths of logical thinking to explore. Embrace this journey with curiosity and persistence, and you'll find that your capacity for critical thinking, problem-solving, and effective communication will continue to grow and evolve throughout your life. In our final chapter, we'll explore the long-term impact of mastering logic and argumentation. We'll discuss how these skills can empower you in various aspects of your life, from personal relationships to professional success. We'll also look at strategies for continuing to improve your skills and adapt them to new challenges. Prepare to see how the logical thinking mindset you've developed can open up new possibilities and help you achieve goals you might have once thought impossible. Chapter 9, Conclusion and Next Steps. As we reach the culmination of our journey through the realm of logic and argumentation, it's time to reflect on the transformative power of the skills and mindset you've developed. This final chapter will explore how mastering these abilities can profoundly impact your life, opening doors to new opportunities and empowering you to achieve goals that may have once seemed out of reach. The skills you've acquired throughout this book are far more than academic exercises or professional tools. They represent a fundamental shift in how you perceive, analyze, and interact with the world around you. By mastering logical thinking and argumentation, you've equipped yourself with a versatile toolkit that can enhance virtually every aspect of your personal and professional life. Let's begin by examining how these skills can empower you for personal and professional growth. The ability to think critically and argue persuasively is increasingly valued in today's complex, information-rich world. In professional settings, these skills can set you apart as a clear thinker and effective problem solver. You'll likely find yourself better equipped to 1. Analyze complex business problems and develop innovative solutions. 2. Make well-reasoned decisions, even in high-pressure situations. 3. Communicate your ideas more effectively to colleagues and superiors. 4. Negotiate more successfully, whether for a promotion, a business deal, or a project proposal. In your personal life, these skills can lead to more informed decisions about everything from financial planning to lifestyle choices. You'll be better able to evaluate claims made in the media, by politicians, or in advertising, allowing you to form more accurate beliefs about the world and make choices that truly align with your values and goals. Moreover, the confidence that comes from knowing you can think through complex issues and articulate your thoughts clearly is invaluable. This self-assurance can help you tackle challenges that you might have previously found intimidating, whether it's starting a new business venture, engaging in public speaking, or pursuing advanced education. One of the most profound impacts of mastering logic and argumentation is how it can improve your relationships. Clear, rational thinking and effective communication are cornerstones of healthy relationships, both personal and professional. By applying the skills you've learned, you can 1. Communicate your thoughts and feelings more clearly, reducing misunderstandings. 2. Resolve conflicts more effectively by focusing on logical solutions rather than emotional reactions. 3. Understand others' perspectives more fully by analyzing their arguments objectively. 4. Build stronger connections based on mutual understanding and respect. In essence, these skills allow you to build more rational, deeper connections with others. You'll find yourself better able to engage in meaningful discussions, offer constructive feedback, and collaborate effectively on shared goals. Now, let's consider what you're now capable of that you couldn't do before. The advanced argumentation and decision-making skills you've developed open up new possibilities in various areas. 1. Complex problem solving. You can now tackle intricate, multifaceted problems with a structured approach, breaking them down into manageable components and analyzing each aspect systematically. 2. Persuasive communication. Whether writing a proposal, giving a presentation, or engaging in a debate, you can construct compelling arguments that resonate with your audience and effectively convey your ideas. 3. Critical analysis. You can evaluate information from various sources, identifying biases, logical fallacies, and weaknesses in arguments, allowing you to form more accurate beliefs about the world. 4. Strategic thinking. Your enhanced analytical skills enable you to think several steps ahead, anticipating potential outcomes and planning for various scenarios. 5. Ethical reasoning. You can navigate complex ethical dilemmas by systematically analyzing the implications of different choices and constructing well-reasoned arguments for your positions. These capabilities, when consistently applied, can lead to significant advancements in your personal and professional life. You might find yourself taking on leadership roles, spearheading innovative projects, or becoming a trusted advisor in your field. As you continue to practice and refine these skills, you'll likely notice that logical thinking and effective argumentation become increasingly effortless. This is the power of developing a logical mindset. Over time, these processes become second nature, allowing you to apply them with less conscious effort. To continue improving your results with less effort, 1. Regularly challenge yourself with new and complex problems to keep your skills sharp. 2. Seek out feedback on your reasoning and arguments from respected peers or mentors. Stay curious and open to new ideas, continuously expanding your knowledge base. 4. Practice applying your skills in diverse contexts to increase their versatility. 5. Teach these skills to others. Explaining concepts to someone else can deepen your own understanding. The long-term benefits of consistent practice are profound. Over time, you may find that you 1. Make better decisions more quickly and confidently. 2. Solve problems more efficiently and effectively. 3. Communicate more persuasively with less preparation time. 4. Navigate complex situations with greater ease and clarity. 5. Achieve your goals more consistently and with less struggle. As we conclude this book, it's important to recognize that the journey you've embarked upon doesn't end here. The world is constantly evolving, presenting new challenges and complexities. The skills and mindset you've developed will serve as a foundation for continuous growth and adaptation. Imagine yourself 5, 10, or 20 years from now, having consistently applied and refined these skills. Picture the complex problems you'll be able to solve, the influential ideas you'll be able to communicate, the wise decisions you'll be able to make. Envision the positive impact you could have on your organization, your community, or even on a global scale. But perhaps the most profound transformation will be internal. By cultivating a logical and analytical mindset, you're not just changing how you think, you're changing who you are. You're becoming a more discerning, more thoughtful, more empowered version of yourself. This transformation opens up a world of possibilities. You'll be better equipped to pursue your passions, to stand up for your beliefs, to create meaningful change in the world around you. You'll be able to engage with the complexities of life not with fear or confusion, but with curiosity and confidence. In essence, mastering logic and argumentation is about more than just winning debates or making good decisions. It's about empowering yourself to live a more intentional, more impactful life. It's about developing the cognitive tools to shape your reality according to your vision and values. As you close this book and step back into your daily life, carry with you the knowledge that you now possess a powerful set of skills that can open doors, solve problems, and create opportunities. But more than that, carry with you the mindset of a logical thinker and skilled communicator. Remember, every conversation is an opportunity to understand more deeply, every challenge a chance to apply your problem-solving skills, every decision a moment to exercise your critical thinking. Embrace these opportunities. Use your new skills not just to succeed, but to make a positive difference in your life, in the lives of those around you, and in the world at large. You've not just read a book, you've embarked on a lifelong journey of intellectual growth and empowerment. The path ahead is filled with possibilities, and you now have the tools to navigate it with confidence and clarity. Your journey into the realm of logic and argumentation has only just begun, and the potential it holds is limitless. As you continue to refine these skills, you'll find that your ability to influence others and achieve your goals grows exponentially. But to truly maximize the impact of your logical thinking and argumentation skills, there's one more crucial element to master: the art of communicating with quiet confidence. By learning to achieve more by saying less, you can amplify the power of your logical arguments and persuasive techniques. To take your newfound skills to the next level and unlock your full potential for influence and success, don't miss the transformative insights in the audiobook Quiet Confidence: How to Achieve More by Saying Less. Tap the center of the video now to continue your transformation journey.